This is The Tiger's Bride by Angela Carter, part of the Bloody Chamber series. The Tiger's Bride. My father lost me to the beast at cards. There's a special madness strikes travellers from the north when they reach the lovely land where the lemon trees grow. We come from countries of cold weather. At home we are at war with nature, but here, you think you've come to the blessed plot where the lion lies down with the lamb. Everything flowers, no harsh wind stirs the voluptuous air. The sun spills fruit for you, and the deathly sensual lethargy of the sweet south infects the starved brain. It gasps, luxury, more luxury. But then the snow comes, you cannot escape it. It follows us from Russia as if it ran behind our carriage, and in this dark, bitter city has caught up with us at last, flocking against the window panes to mock my father's expectations of perpetual pleasure, as the veins in his forehead stand out and throb. His hands shake as he deals the devil's picture books. The candles dropped hot, acrid gouts of wax on my bare shoulders. I watched with the furious cynicism peculiar to women whose circumstances force mutely to witness folly, while my father fired in his desperation by more and yet more draughts of the fire-water they call grappa, rids himself of the last scraps of my inheritance. When we left Russia we owned black earth, blue forest with bear and wild boar, serfs, cornfields, farmyards, my beloved horses, white nights of cool summer, the fireworks of the northern lights. What a burden all these possessions must have been to him, because he laughs as if with glee as he beggars himself. He is in such a passion to donate all to the beast. Everyone who comes to this city must play a hand with the Grand Seigneur. Few come. They did not warn us at Milan, or if they did, we did not understand them. My limping Italian, the bewildering dialect of the region. Indeed, I myself spoke up in favor of this remote provincial place, out of fashion 200 years, because, oh irony, it boasted no casino. I did not know that the price of a stay in its Decembral solitude was a game with milord. The hour was late. The chill damp of this place creeps into the stones, into your bones, into the spongy pit of the lungs. It insinuated itself with a shiver into our parlour, where milord came to play in the privacy essential to him. Who could refuse the invitation his valet brought to our lodging? Not my profligate father. Not my profligate father. Certainly, the mirror above the table gave me back his frenzy, my impassivity, the withering candles, the emptying bottles, the coloured tide of the cards as they rose and fell, the still mask that concealed all the features of the beast, but for the yellow eyes that strayed now and then from his unfurled hand towards myself. La bestia, said our landlady, gingerly fingering an envelope with his huge crest of a tiger rampant on it. Something of fear, something of wonder in her face, and I could not ask her why they called the master of the place La Bestia. Was it to do with that heraldic signature? Because her tongue was so thickened by the phlegmy, bronchitic speech of the region, I scarcely managed to make out a thing she said, except when she saw me. Che bella! Since I could toddle, always the pretty one, with my glossy nut-brown curls, my rosy cheeks, and born on Christmas Day, her Christmas Rose, my English nurse called me. The peasants said, the living image of her mother, crossing themselves out of respect for the dead. My mother did not blossom long, bartered for her dowry to such a feckless sprig of the Russian nobility that she soon died of his gaming, his whoring, his agonizing repentances. And the beast gave me the rose from his own impeccable, if outmoded buttonhole, when he arrived, the valet brushing the snow off his black cloak. This white rose, unnatural, out of season, that now my nervous fingers ripped, petal by petal, apart as my father magnificently concluded the career he had made of catastrophe. This is a melancholy introspective region, a sunless, featureless landscape, the sullen river sweating fog, the shorn hunkering willows. And a cruel city, the sombre piazza, a place uniquely suited to public executions under the beetling shadow of that malign barn of a church. They used to hang condemned men in cages from the city walls. Unkindness comes naturally to them. Their eyes are set too close together. They have thin lips. Poor fed, pasta soaked in oil, boiled beef with sauce of bitter herbs. A funeral hush about the place, the inhabitants huddled up against the cold so you could hardly see their faces, and they lie to you and cheat you, innkeepers, coachmen, everybody. God, how they fleeced us. The treacherous south, where you think there is no winter but forget you take it with you. My senses were increasingly troubled by the fuddling perfume of milord, far too potent a reek of purplish civet at such close quarters in so small a room. He must bathe himself in scent, soak his shirts and underlinen in it. What can he smell of that needs so much camouflage? I never saw a man so big look so two-dimensional, in spite of the quaint elegance of the beast, in the old-fashioned tailcoat that might, from its looks, have been bought in those distant years before he imposed seclusion on himself. He does not feel he need keep up with the times. There is a crude clumsiness about his outlines that are on the ungainly giant side, and he has an odd air of self-imposed restraint, as if fighting a battle with himself to remain upright when he would far rather drop down on all fours. He throws our human aspirations to the godlike sadly awry. Poor fellow, only from a distance would you think the beast not much different from any other man, although he wears a mask with a man's face painted most beautifully on it. Oh yes, a beautiful face, but one with too much formal symmetry of feature to be entirely human. One profile of his mask is the mirror image of the other, too perfect, uncanny. He wears a wig too, false hair tied at the nape, with a bow, a wig of the kind you see in old-fashioned portraits. A chaste silk stock stuck with a pearl hides his throat, and gloves of blonde kid that are yet so huge and clumsy they do not seem to cover hands. He is a carnival figure made of papier-mâché and crepe hair, and yet he has the devil's knack at cards. His masked voice echoes as from a great distance as he stoops over his head, and he has such a growling impediment on his speech that only his valet, who understands him, can interpret for him, as if his master were the clumsy doll and he the ventriloquist. The wick slumped in the eroded wax, the candles guttered. By the time my rose had lost all its petals, my father, too, was left with nothing except the girl. Gambling is a sickness. My father said he loved me, yet he staked his daughter on a hand of cards. He found them out. In the mirror, I saw wild hope light up his eyes. His collar was unfastened, his rumpled hair stood up on end. He had the anguish of a man in the last stages of debauchery. The draughts came out of the old walls and bit me. I was colder than I'd ever been in Russia, when nights are coldest there. A queen, a king, an ace. I saw them in the mirror. Oh, I know he thought he could not lose me. Besides, back with me would come all he had lost, the unravelled fortunes of our family at one blow restored. And would he not win as well the beast's hereditary palazzo outside the city, his immense revenues, his lands around the river, his rents, his treasure chest, his Mantignas, his Guillo Romanos, his Cellini salt cellars, his titles, the very city itself? You must not think my father valued me at less than a king's ransom, but at no more than a king's ransom. It was cold as hell in the parlour, and it seemed to me, child of the severe north, that it was not my flesh, but truly my father's soul that was in peril. My father, of course, believed in miracles. What gambler does not? In pursuit of just such a miracle as this, had we not travelled from the land of bears and shooting stars? So we teetered on the brink. The beast bayed, laid down all three remaining aces. The indifferent servants now glided smoothly forward as on wheels to dose the candles one by one. To look at them you would think that nothing of any moment had occurred. They yawned a little resentfully. It was almost morning. We had kept them out of bed. The beast's man brought his cloak. My father sat amongst his preparations for departure, staring on at the betrayal of his cards upon the table. The beast's man informed me crisply that he, the valet, would call for me and my bags tomorrow at 10 and conduct me forthwith to the beast's palazzo. Capiscio? So shocked was I that I scarcely did capiscio. He repeated my orders patiently. He was a strange, thin, quick little man who walked with an irregular, jolting rhythm upon splayed feet in curious wedge-shaped shoes.